Welcome into the CHGO White Sox Podcast. On today's show, I'll be talking to Besnik Zekiri about Chris Getz. How has he done after a year? We will talk to you next on the CHGO White Sox Podcast. See if Steven's around. CHGO White Sox Podcast, coming to you live from Studio B of our CHGO offices here in the West Loop of Chicago. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me is my producer, Joey Christopoulos. On today's show, I will be talking to Besnik Zekiri of Sox on Tap. He writes over there, in an age of blogging being kind of, in the olden days, Besnik's still keeping it up. The time-honored tradition, and we love him for that. We'll also talk about being a real White Sox fan, because somebody called me or said that I wasn't a real White Sox fan, so I brought on the expert to test if I'm actually a White Sox fan or not. Before we bring on Besnik, we are going to be talking about Chris Getz today. We'll also be talking about Drew Thorpe's injury. We're not sure exactly what the diagnosis is, but we know that he left the AAA game today with elbow soreness, which is never good for a pitcher. But yeah, we'll be talking about Chris Getz's tenure on today's show. Hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribing to the CHGO YouTube channel. We also have a show coming up tonight. The Blackhawks and Bulls both have post games. So if you're looking for Bulls or Blackhawks coverage, we have you covered. Let's go to the Hooters Hot Wings Hotline and welcome in Besnik Zekiri of Sox on Tap, a Southsider through and through. Where are you from? I didn't get the chance to ask this before you joined, but what area are you from? Because you're always talking about me being a Brother Rice Jag, your words, not mine. So, what are you? What so high and mighty?
Well, I have a hunch that we might be from the same area. I grew up in Oak Lawn.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, so there you go. So that's what makes me high and mighty, Sean. And you have that same right too, to be high and mighty.
Oh yes, one of the better Chicago suburbs, if not the best. Are you? I won't dox you on air. We'll talk about your address off air.
It's all good, and I kid Brother Rice. Like some of my dearest friends from growing up all went to Brother Rice, and it's all in fun. I'm a public school kid who went to Richards, so. It's some fun banter there, of course.
See, and my lovely mother reminded me every time that I did something poorly as a child was that she would immediately take away my right to go to Brother Rice and send me to Richards. So that was always the threat, was that I would go to Richards because it was a lot cheaper. She was paying for it anyway. We don't have to get into it. Let's get into Chris Getz, the more important White Sox topic. Besnik, what do you make, first of all, of the Drew Thorpe news? I don't think many people were expecting him to make the opening day roster, but I don't think they were also expecting him not to pitch in 2025. It sounds like he might not pitch at all in 2025. What do you make of the Thorpe news?
Yeah, I am not going to hold my breath here that we're going to get good news, because that's just the way things have been going in spring training so far. We've had the 4 Tommy Johns, Mason Adams, that could be the 5th. Thorpe, hopefully it's not the 6th. It's I like you said, I expected him to start the season on the IL, so I wasn't expecting this, though. I wasn't expecting another setback. So it just, the first thing that comes to mind is that trade. Like, this is the centerpiece for Dylan Cease. Your opening day starter 2 years ago, the guy who was a runner-up in the Cy Young not that long ago. This was a premium asset that Chris Getz traded, and I understand why they did it. And I was, you're never happy about trading away your best players. But it seemed like the right move in the right direction to go for a rebuild. But the returns from that trade with this injury, and when you look at the rest, there's not a whole lot to get excited about there.
Hey, did you not see that one highlight from camp where Samuel Zavala hit a left-on-left home run? Come on.
Was that like
That's
a
history in the
B
making.
game? Was split
Yes.
squad? Oh, jeez. God,
It was
it's
our
so bad.
own lefty that he was hitting a home run off of. So yay.
Oh, even
Woohoo.
better.
Yeah, and plus with Iriarte, I was doing my own top 20 list. I don't know how much that matters, but he's outside of my top 10. And even looking at my top 10, Grant Taylor's behind him, and I probably already have Grant Taylor above Iriarte. What do you make of Iriarte if we are kind of iffy on the main piece of that Cease trade? They kind of need Iriarte to hit. Do you have any positive thoughts or negative thoughts after what we saw in his major league debut last year?
It's interesting because the White Sox have said, I don't remember if it was Venable or Getz, but they want to try him as a starter and they want to make him a starting pitcher, and they've had him as a starter in the minor leagues. I know when he came up last year, he did pitch in relief during that first cup of coffee. But everything I've read from Baseball Prospectus, Fangraphs, everybody projects this guy to be a reliever. So there's not a whole lot to be excited about in a reliever. The White Sox have had a habit of doing this in the past where, they said this guy is not going to stick at this position, or he's a reliever, and they try him at that and it doesn't really work out. There's a few guys that come to mind, but hopefully, if we can salvage that trade somehow, maybe he can turn into a starter. It doesn't hurt to try because, they've got starts to give him.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing, too, that makes me a little iffy on him is his actual profile as a reliever. He seems like he has more of a reliever or a profile as a starter, just with his sinker, with his stuff that you typically moves more like east to west. Like, he doesn't seem like a big swing and miss guy. He also seems like he has difficulty even hitting the zone. Like, it's a real iffy second piece the more and more we see from it. What did you think of that? Like, did you think that was a B grade? I think I gave it like a B minus C plus when I first saw it. I understood why he did it, but again, I felt like just MLB in general was just kind of under on Cease's value in general, like not appreciating how much he threw consistently over the 3 years he was with the Sox.
Yeah, I mean, his value was a little bit lower because he was coming off of a bad year. I thought that the trade was. I stop a little short of saying I was underwhelmed. I was hoping for a little bit better. I'd say they got about like 90% of his value. So not bad. I would give it a B or maybe a B minus if I was being, glass half empty, because you got, that their price tag was 2 top 100 prospects and 2 other guys. And depending on which ranking system you looked at, Iriarte and Thorpe were both top 100 guys, at least from Fangraphs. So the price was met, but you keep stockpile, you trade your best pitcher and you get more pitchers, and you're short on guys who can hit.
Well, and not to cloud the waters weirdly and just take a complete left turn. I know you are a part of the BBWAA, so these are my comments, not Besnik's, but then we kind of get into the whole conspiracy of maybe GMs are paying some of these sites to boost their, top 100 prospects. Maybe like the Dodgers, Dalton Rushing. Who was the other guy? Amaya? No, the other catcher that failed for them. But also the Padres. Padres have a lot of top 100 prospects. I don't know. I think AJ Preller has a side deal going on with some people.
That's some good tinfoil hat theory right there. I like that. I like that as a good coping strategy. If our GM doesn't know what he's instead of our GM not knowing what he's doing, he's just getting robbed. We're getting robbed.
Absolutely. I think one of the ones that impressed me and maybe you thought like, oh, maybe we won't get robbed was the Prelander Baroa Gregory Santos swap. Even with Prelander's injury and looking like it's probably going to be Tommy John, if not already announced going to be Tommy John.
Yeah.
I still like that deal because it was clear that Brian Bannister didn't love Gregory Santos. He got rid of him when he was with, I believe, the Red Sox and Giants. So he comes to the White Sox and gets rid of him at his high value. I thought that was a smart idea, even, with Prelander's injury. Do you still think that's his best trade, or do you think he's been able to beat that since?
I think it's got to be the Crochet trade. But I mean, it's kind of hard not to get a great return for a guy like Garrett Crochet. given what he did and his potential. So I think that's going to be his best trade. But I like that trade on paper. Like, sell high on a reliever. You got a reliever with a similar profile, with a little bit more control. And then you got the draft pick, which was like something so different from the White Sox. I'm like, hey, maybe Chris Getz is different. He got a draft pick in a trade. But, Baroa's had Tommy John. The draft pick, Blake Larson, had Tommy John. And Zach Deloach has been DFA'd and has cleared waivers. So 29 other teams didn't want him, and he's not even on the 40-man roster now. So it's not looking good. But I like the thought process there. I like selling high in a reliever and getting a draft pick.
So the one that boggled my mind, as we're pretty much going in chronological order at this point, was getting rid of Christian Mena for our guy, everyone's guy, Dominic Fletcher. Fletcher hasn't panned out. Already optioned to Charlotte, will not make the opening day roster. Do you think that was a mistake on their end, not going and keeping Mena, who is only 20 years old? Or do you feel like Getz has a loyalty to Brian Bannister, and that's what we've seen throughout Getz's tenure, is that he's going to listen to Brian Bannister's advice, and he's going to listen to Ryan Fuller's advice, the guys that he put into those higher echelon of positions with the White Sox?
I would like to think that he's not listening to his pitching and hitting instructors when he's making trades and deals with other GMs. Take their advice into account, absolutely. But hopefully he's not just making the deal based on what they said entirely, because it's his job and ultimately his decision. I like the thought process there a little bit, because you've got Josh Barfield there, who knows Arizona's system really well. So I'm assuming that he got some input there to say, hey, Dominic Fletcher could be a guy. Let's go grab him. And you've got a deal from depth. If you need position players, we've got a ton of pitching. So the trade there lined up pretty well. Mena was never a top 100 guy. Maybe he will be. I know he was like really young for the level he was at. But yeah, that one's not looking good. It's another one that you can't really feel good about.
But even then, I don't feel like Fletcher's a complete wash, because he was still a positive WAR player last year. He was their best defender last year.
Yeah.
He's kind of like their version of Adam Engel. Like, if Engel came up and gave you an OPS of 700, let's go, baby. That's found money. But, if he's going out there and is doing his job, at least, manning right field, I'm fine with that. It seemed that, major league center fields were a bit too big for his little legs, but he can cover right field.
He can definitely cover right. He can play the field. There's no doubt about that, like Gold Glove caliber. But he can't hit, and that's the biggest problem with this team. And I'm not saying defense isn't important. It's very important. But, this offense, we need guys that can hit. And he's not going to cut it. The Adam Engel thing is pretty funny, because I want to look back at some tweets, because I'm willing to bet I tweeted that same exact thing. Oh, probably because we're both from Oklahoma.
Let's go. We were drinking that same water, and it's probably poisoned with something. I don't know. Anyways. Yeah, and I think that was the one thing that I've liked so far with Getz before we hit this break. At least looking at the outfield, they are putting guys that have been there and done that before. Unfortunately, Andrew Benintendi is that type of player, but that's not even Getz's mistake. I do like the fact that they are giving a shot to Michael A. Taylor on top of Tauchman, on top of Slater, on top of etc. But I think that the outfield is one part where I do think the White Sox have improved over their 121 loss team.
It's pretty cool when I wrote that article after Benintendi got hurt. I'm like, wow, I actually wrote the words, the White Sox have enough outfield depth to cover this injury. I'm like, where was that in 2021 and 2022? We were throwing first baseman and right and left field. So yeah, I do like the depth there. I do like the idea of moving guys around in the DH spot, especially Robert, if you need to give his legs a break and just keep his bat in the lineup. So some smart roster construction there. I'll give Getzy a little credit.
Yeah, Brian Goodwin will never have to buy a drink in Chicago again just because of his performance in 2021 alone. We are going to take a break here on the CHGO White Sox podcast, and we'll talk more White Sox with Besnik, Zekiri. We want to let you know about our friends over at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. It's your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your spring/summer. I don't know what season it is. One day it's 70, one day it's snowing. You figure it out. Go to Sunnyside. We know that for sure. Sunnyside is Illinois' favorite dispensary with locations in the city, whether Wrigleyville or River North, whether Champaign or South Beloit. I don't know the nearest Sunnyside around you. I think it's ALLCITY. I think it's our good old friends ALLCITY, but I could be wrong. Anyways, if you're starting out, Sunnyside has expert guidance and brands they know you'll love, like Good News and Mindy's. And if you're a pro, they have you covered with over 100 strains on the menus, with new ones added daily. So visit Sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including which Sunnyside is closest to you, and 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois medical card holders. We also want to let you know about our friends over at Ray Chevy. The March Radness sales event is going on now at Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake. That means the latest vehicles you've been looking for are now priced with game-winning savings, like 0% financing for 60 months, $0 down, 0 payments for 90 days, plus 0 hidden fees on select new Chevy models. Or check out the selection of over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. With one of Chicagoland's largest Chevy inventories, you'll be able to find the perfect vehicle for you and your family. And as one of the top-selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, they always keep their prices competitive, so you know that you'll get a great deal. And their Ray price promise means you can shop confidently, because the price you're hearing is the price that you will get either online or in store. So go see for yourself. Visit our partner this March at their convenient location right on Route 12 in Fox Lake. Shop Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive. Back here on the CHGO White Sox podcast with our pal Besnik Zekiri. Go check out Sox on Tap. Our good pals over there. Shout out to Buzz too. We had Buzz on back in 2022. And you know, I'm always thinking of Buzz. Anyways, Buzz
is the best.
Real good guy, real genuine guy. Let's get into that Chris Getz trade of Garrett Crochet. I think it's really graded out well for him. The one guy I'm really questioning right now is Chase Mydroth and with whether he'll make the opening day roster. There's been some decent stories though in White Sox spring training. Nick Maton and Brandon Drury. Is there going to be a spot on the opening day roster for Chase Mydroth? Because he seems like the one that is closest to the MLB out of the ones that Getz have acquired so far.
Yeah, I think he is probably the first prospect that gets called up. It's crazy to think that he may have even jumped in front of Colson Montgomery in that regard, but that's a whole different ball of wax there. It'll be interesting to see what they do here. Like you said, Drury is just tearing the cover off the ball. I don't know how you keep him off the roster given the lack of hitting and what he's shown so far. So I don't know. It's not looking good. It's not looking good for Mydroth. He's got options, and I think they still like Lennon Sosa. I still think they like Jacob Amaya, even though you could probably do better just sticking the bat out horizontally at the plate.
I think that's then
yeah, exactly. Just go up there and bunt, dude. So I don't know. I don't see it. I think because those two guys are out of options and they like Sosa, I think that's probably what we see.
Do you not like Sosa? You're saying that with such a tone. Come on. He's the Venezuelan Winter League superstar we've all been dreaming of.
I know. It's just that September was so BABIP fueled. It was like nearly 500 on that. I know he's been crushing the ball in spring training, but he crushed the ball in AA and AAA. Just in the majors, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I think I've seen enough personally that I can move on. He's barely a competent second baseman. So I'm not a fan there. I would probably go with Mydroth or Drury. They've got a couple of spots to put guys because they can still put there's a couple of pitchers that they haven't put on the 60-day IL yet. They haven't put Baroa on the 60-day yet, and someone else who's out for the year. Schultens is already there.
Okay.
Kai Bush is already there. Juan Corella, who they put on the roster to protect from the Rule 5 draft. So once they put those two guys on the 60-day IL, I think they're going to add Drury, and I think the other one, unfortunately, is going to be Mike Clevenger, because they seem to just be very enamored with him.
Yeah. I mean, so far his spring training stats say that he should make the roster. I mean, I don't know. That's all I have to say. I have to just detach myself from that conversation. They want to try it. I don't know. It's so weird to me because when we're talking about Getz, like, they seem to want to get away from the past. The only players that are still here are Luis Robert Jr., Andrew Vaughn, and Bud, of course, Mike Clevenger. And I know he wasn't even a part of the 2021 team, but still, the past, he was a Rick Hahn acquisition. That's at least what I'm thinking of.
Right.
I do you think that he's far enough and has distanced himself enough away from the past regime? Because that seemed like what the whole entire point of this offseason was, let's upgrade the underbelly. Do you think that they've upgraded that underbelly enough to where, the whole culture talk isn't sickening?
I think so. I mean, the roster has turned over so much, besides the people that you've mentioned. So I would say so. It's just the talent is still very unproven. I mean, you've got a guy like Penn Murphy in the pen. You've picked up Shane Smith. You've got Bryce Wilson. There's some guys who have intrigued me in spring training so far. It looks like Shane Smith is going to probably even be our number 5 starter. You got that announcement today, which was a really cool video. I'm sure you saw it. So yeah, yes, I would say. I mean, on paper it looks good, but let's play the games and see what we've actually got.
Well, and shout out to Will Venable in that video, because he really had me and I believe Shane Smith on a string, thinking that Shane Smith was like, "Hey, I'm absolutely going back to Milwaukee." Dude, they spent the first overall pick in the Rule 5 draft. Like, they had to know that you were making the major league roster. I do like that he is going to be the 5th starter. I talked to Jordan Lazowski on Monday about this. Are you a fan of that? My thought is, I mean, what do you have to lose? It's a Rule 5 pick. Worst thing is he sucks as a starter. He moves to the bullpen. It's Flexen light. If Flexen was a Rule 5 pick.
Right. Yeah, that's about it. If you can get a Chris Flexen year out of this guy, that's great. If you can maybe even flip him at the deadline to be that spot starter for a contender that needs to get through the rest of the innings of the season, he can help there if he pitches well. So I'm all for putting him in the rotation. Try it out, see if it works, because Mason Adams is not looking good for him. It's not looking good for Drew Thorpe. So it's down to pretty much him and Bryce Wilson. So, give the kid a shot.
And Wilson is one of the very few major league additions Chris Getz made this offseason. I think I'm going to win the bet unless he pulls another Tommy Pham, Mike Clevenger thing of last year of signing a guy 3 day into the season. But I bet Beefloaf, a cheeseburger over at the Billy Goat, that they wouldn't spend over $5 million on a single player. Chris Getz has won me that bet. Is that a mistake on their end? I think they're still under $75 million total on their 26-man payroll. Do you think that was a mistake? Do you feel like they should have beefed up this team a little bit more, where Bryce Wilson shouldn't be contending for the 5th spot in the rotation?
I would like them to do some things like that, where they sign somebody who's decent to maybe a multi-year deal who you can trade at the deadline. That's kind of hard to do because those guys are usually good enough to pitch for a contender and they don't want to get traded at the deadline. Take a look at Walker Buehler or Jack Flaherty, a guy like that. I would have, that's the type of stuff that I would hope that they're going to go for. Sure. I would have liked them to do a little bit better, aim a little bit higher, but I also get it. I also, just where they're at. And of course, I don't know what the chairman is willing to approve in terms of spending. So there's that part too.
Right. But do you think that Getz spent what he was allotted to on that background stuff, and that's why we're not seeing it out on the field. Because I think part of the reason why you're not seeing it out on the field too is just, to be honest, they can't say it out loud. They want to tank. They want to get the best odds to get the number one pick. They cannot guarantee getting a number one overall pick, but they can guarantee themselves the best odds just by being dog crap.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it too. I mean, like you said, they can't come out and say that, but yeah, they're going to be bad, and they want to be bad enough without letting the bottom fall out like it did last year. So I think they've done enough to prop up the roster to not let that happen. But this is still a 110 loss team.
Well, and folks, if you think it looks bad now, just wait until they trade Luis Robert Jr. Besnik, I've been asking both you, Jordan Lazowski, and then our guy, Mitchell Kaminsky, who we had on yesterday, when will Chris Getz trade Luis Robert Jr., the next trade we get to grade? Do you think it's going to be a maybe earlier trade where you see him dealt in June, or do you think that Getz might hold on to him last second up until July? Because I think it's certain that he's dealing him this year.
He's definitely dealing them this year. I'm leaning more towards an early season deal, kind of like that Luis Ariz trade. Was that last year or 2 years ago when they dealt him early in the season? I want to say it was like May, or maybe even it might have even been April when they traded him over to San Diego.
Yeah, May.
Yeah, so I could see that. I mean, I think it's a little bit easier to judge a pitcher like when they traded Cease. You've got so much more data and metrics to go off of. And obviously there's the eyeball test, but with a hitter, I think you want to see a little bit more of some major league action. You want to see how he's moving in the outfield. And, that's going to take at least a month to prove something. So I think that if I have to put some money down on a bet, I'm going to say it's going to be before the trade deadline.
I agree with you. I do think it's going to be probably like late June, early July. I would be surprised if it's as early as May. But if I'm a GM and I'm seeing his swinging strike rate in spring training, I'm drooling. I know as a podcast host, I'm already drooling. Do you allow yourself to buy into Luis Robert's spring training stats? Because I see a guy that just wants to get the hell out of here. And that's fine with me, because I think that's just going to boost his actual trade value.
Yeah, I think for his own well-being, he needs to get the hell out of here, because this would be his third 100+ loss season in a row. Like, that's got to take a toll on you as a human being. All that losing. I mean, if I were him, I would feel exactly the same way. So, I fight the excitement of spring training stats or what they could show. Like, even when there was that news of the potential sale of the team, I'm like, I took every bit of strength for me to like not get too excited about it. So I do as good as I can. And I remind myself of Hanser Alberto 2 years ago, who hit like 470 in spring training. And we were kind of like, hey, maybe this was a good pickup as a bench guy, a big improvement over Leary. And he was like DFA'd 2 months later.
Yeah, and then he kneed Tim Anderson in the back of the head, and Tim Anderson was never the same since. Anyways, sure. One of the things that you did bring up, or at least threw out in the what's it called? The rundown was White Sox and MLB landscape ownership, along with future organizational changes. Are you allowing yourself to buy into the Ishbia news? Because I feel like it's pretty real. It's just depending on MLB owners approving it. They approved Steve Cohen. I don't see a reason why Ishbia wouldn't be approved. I mean, what's not allowing you to buy into that?
I think that it will be approved. I don't see any reason why they would be against it. And if Jerry Reinsdorf, who's one of the most powerful owners out of the 30, is behind it, then I think this is going to go through. What I don't allow myself to get excited about is if this is going to bring any immediate change. We can speculate about this all day, but the owners approve it. Is he going to be able to wield any power from day one and say, let's go sign some guys? Or is it going to be more of him in the background focusing on bringing in a new stadium? The stadium's a big thing to me. I think that's a big reason why this is happening. And I think they've got to get shovels in the ground in the next 9 months if they want to get this thing built and up and running when they need to move out of the rate.
I agree. But also, it seems like they're definitely playing a game of chicken, because if that land opens up on the lakefront, they are absolutely going there. And again, you talk about Jerry's. Oh, absolutely. If that plot of land opens up, Chicago wants to fill it. And why would the White Sox not take that? I mean, that is as prime real estate as possible. I don't understand why the Bears would leave it.
I totally get that. But man, that is going to be such a pain to get in and out of. As a fan, that just sounds brutal. I don't know. Hope maybe they can do some infrastructure changes to make it a little bit more accessible. But like, I dread sometimes going to Bears games just because of getting in and out of that place. So,
and that's the joy of going to it every Sunday and not, every weekday, where that would be the hellscape of baseball. But also, I mean, there's a decent size amount of parking lots already there. I mean, they're filling it for 80K to what, 100K at times with the full field filled out for some concerts. So, I mean, I don't know. I think they could fill the 40 for with the current parking lot landscape.
I hope so. I hope that they do something to improve it. Yeah, I guess it would be less, because I think Soldier Field holds about 60 and this would hold like 40. So that might help things. But you're just cut off on the east there. There's no, you got the lake. So that makes it difficult. But that would not be my first choice. My first choice would be the 78. Or actually stay right where they are. Just extend the lease, because the stadium's totally fine in my book.
We just need a time machine to go back to 1991 to tell them to build the ballpark facing the actual skyline, and they'd be fine where it was.
Right. It was like, just wait another year and look what happens to Camden Yards. Okay, just wait.
Dude, literally just do the Armour Square thing. I'll have you on a different time to talk about Armour Square Park. Great. All right.
I'd love it.
The final thing I kind of just want to talk to you about is the what a realistic rebuild looks for this team. I believe Brian Bannister himself brought up the Milwaukee Brewers when James Fegan asked about keeping pitching around, and he's like, hey, we got to develop them quickly because we know we won't be able to keep them around long. Am I wrong to think that this team is trying to just be the Brewers South?
No, I totally agree with you. I think that it's that Brewers Guardians model where you just become a pitching factory and you just have arms just for days. If a guy goes down, you've got another guy that you can plug in the bullpen, in the starting rotation. And they're not going to re-sign any of them. They're not going to extend any one of them. So, and then I guess it's just, and that's like the one thing where I'll always I'll give people the benefit of the doubt when we talk about the White Sox, is like, they've got a pretty good handle on pitching. I think they've been pretty good over the years of finding these guys under the radar, or, extracting a great year out of Johnny Cueto. So I'm like, okay, on the pitching side, yes, but for the love of God, man, we've got to score some runs. Someone's got to hit. So I guess maybe you deal those pitchers and make trades for hitters. But as we've discussed, those trades have not worked out very well so far.
Well, so, that's at least what excites me about the Crochet deal is, like, I like Teal as a prospect, but the guy that I'm truly excited about is Montgomery. And hey, there's even Mydroth with it. Like, that's the big issue with the Cease one. And maybe that's what Chris Getz learned, was if you are dealing one of these pitchers, you have to get some bat of impact in some way, because just the top loading of Iriarte and Thorpe seems to be a misstep, an early misstep.
Big time. I hope he did learn his lesson there. And yes, I like Montgomery too. He was they had him in center field, which I thought he was going to be a right fielder, but he moved really well. He tracked the ball really well. If he can play center, that makes him even more intriguing.
He seems athletic. I mean, the other Montgomery also seemed athletic, but now he has back issues as a 23-year-old. So hopefully Braden could just stay healthy. Anyways, we're going to wrap up the show. We appreciate Besnik Zekiri of Sox on Tap. Anything you want to push? I know you guys have your own podcast. I know you have your own writing up on Sox on Tap. So feel free to push where people can find you.
I've got my writing up on Sox on Tap. You can check it out at ontapsportsnet.com. We have our podcast as well, which will be probably running weekly. Our season preview show will probably go down next week. So check us out. Check out any of that writing. You can follow me at Bez Beyond the Pen. And last but not least, Sabre released this book of the 2005 White Sox 20-year anniversary. and yours truly is in it. I had the honor of writing Ed Farmer's biography.
Really?
So yes, yeah, really.
So
So
told me this before the show. We could have pushed this. This could be something we could have talked about. We had 34 minutes.
Well, man, I wanted to discuss all these other topics. I just wanted to, saving this for the end. So I want to talk to you. But yeah,
I mean, I want to
check
talk to
out,
you about that. What
check
are
out
people
the
checking
book.
out? Show it again.
This book right here.
2005 World Champion Chicago White Sox. Grinders and Gamers. Hell
Yeah. So
yes.
I loved Ed, so it was an honor to write that, and hopefully I did his legacy in life some justice. He's a Southside legend, just like you and I, Sean. I mean, we're not to Ed's level, obviously,
No.
but he lived the dream. He pitched for the team he grew up loving and watching. That was just really cool about him, and so many things about Ed were just awesome.
And just not even like I never met him, but everyone that I know, Herb, Tanny, all the guys that worked with him at the Score, like cry when they talk about him. Like he's truly a legend. Go check that out. That is both in paperback and ebook. You can go find that at saber.org. So appreciate Bez joining us. Make sure you go check him out at Sox on Tap, and we will talk to you next Monday at 4 p.m. here on the CHGO White Sox Podcast.
Later, guys.
We all silly like the mayor.